Hi, welcome back to the homestead. Today I'm going to show you how I prepare my memory bears. Right now I have a stack of all my pattern pieces cut out. This is from a blue flannel plaid t-shirt. I have 4 pieces of arm, 4 leg, the head gusset, and it's done in denim. 4 ears, 2 of them are in the blue flannel, 2 of them in the jean. Back of the body, back of the head, the foot, front of the head, and front of the body. So I'll go ahead and unpin my pattern pieces. I make a lot of memory bears for local hospice here in Western PA. I know I've made well over 200. So I just use these mini quarter clips to clip the pieces together, right sides facing each other. And I clip all of them together, add them to a pile. There's front of the head. But like I said, I make them for my local hospice. Right now, I just returned, I believe there was 1, 2, 3, 4 bears and 1 memory pillow. I returned into the hospice office yesterday and picked up a order for 11 memory bears for 1 family. So that's going to be a huge order, but before I even get to that, I have 4 bears that I need to do for a personal order that I picked up through Facebook. Like I said, I've made so many of these, it's just almost second nature in a way. You know, I know what side to pin, where to sew, etc. But yes, I do, you know, get distracted at times, and I have made mistakes and had to get the good old seam ripper out. And anybody that sews, you know, we hate getting the seam ripper. Okay, now these 2 pieces are the back of the bear. So I will leave an opening towards the bottom here. And I always put a straight pin where I know I have to leave the opening so I don't just, you know, keep sewing away. Because I chain piece, actually all these pieces together, it's much quicker. Okay, these are my ear pieces. The 2 flannel pieces, my 2 blue jean pieces. I pin them good sides together. Oh, actually, I don't pin, I clip. Clips out. Okay, this is the head gusset. This is just 1 piece. So I just take the pattern off. And I actually need to make some new patterns. They're getting quite holy from, you know, making so many. And that I lay to the side with my bottom of my feet. These are the 4 leg pieces. And they get stitched this side and up this side. I can usually do 1 bear a day. If I don't have anything else, you know, I need to do, I can just sit here in my craft room and put it all together at one time. This morning I finished, I'll show you here in a second, I finished an order already for hospice. And I'll show that one to you here in a second as soon as I get these pinned together, or clipped together. But I wanted to, like I said, make a video here. I'm not going into complete detail because it would be over an hour video, and I personally don't like to sit that long to watch a video. I try to keep mine less than an hour. These are the two arms. And they also have an opening in the back where you actually stuff them with. So it's clipped together. Like I said, I've made quite a few of these so far. I really enjoy the process. I know that a family member, you know, is really going to enjoy having this memory with them. And if I can, you know, even make their grieving process a little easier, I find that important. So, okay, hang on one second. Alright. Let's see, I have to adjust my camera a little bit. There I am. Hi, folks. Okay, this is the one I just finished this morning. She is made from green and white pair of pajamas. She has the blue jean bow with flower there next to her ear, brown eyes, brown felt nose and mouth, and then the customer requested a blue jean dress and the bow, so that's her little dress. It's also got 3 little flowers attached to her and her little legs. And like I said, this is the one I finished this morning. And as you can see in the background, my craft room is quite the mess, but I have a lot of stuff that I use, and it's just the way it is. Most crafters know their room is their space. So, like I said, this one I just finished this morning. Okay, I apologize for cutting that clip there short, but my husband was calling and I had to answer the phone. But I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of sewing here with you. And just, you know, share a little bit more of the making process. I do 1/4 inch seams. I always back stitch beginning of each stitch. Like I said, I do a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I do my pieces in chain piecing method. A lot of quoters know what that is, where you just keep on sewing pieces together without cutting everything apart. It saves thread, it saves time. Okay, this is one of the arms. So I come to where the opening is, or where the opening needs to be. I back stitch a little bit, then I stitch off, loosen my thread, remove the pin, and I go up to where I feel I left a big enough opening to put stuffing in, stitch, back stitch, back stitch again, and then I just bring the next arm piece to my sewing machine, stitch on, back stitch, and continue sewing. Like I said, with continuous piecing like this, it saves the thread, saves time, and it's easier for me to keep things in order. I sew with a Brother Nouvelle 15 100S series. This was one of my mom's sewing machines. It's a very heavy-duty straight stitch machine. She used it for a lot of her quilting, and I use it for my quilting also. But this was one of her machines that I inherited when she passed. I love this machine. I just wish sometimes it did more than straight stitch. So I have a smaller brother that is mine, that I do zigzag stitches with. I also have one of Mom's that, I'm not sure how many different fancier stitches it does, that if I'm doing something like that, I bring it out. But I have a fine collection of sewing machines, embroidering machines. Between the ones I had and the ones I got from my mom, I have quite the collection. I have my old treadle, antique treadle machine, and my mom's treadle machine. They both work. Sometimes I use them just, you know, for something different. If I'm just making a small project, I'll bring one of them out and use them. But my main one, I really believe, is this brother. It's always out on my craft table. And as you can tell, when you do this chain piecing like this, it's really a quick process. I'm going around the curves in the ears now. So sometimes I have to lift the presser foot up just a little bit to make the curve. Like I said, I always try to back stitch when I start onto a new piece and when I finish a new piece. Another nice thing about my craft room is my sewing machine is right in front of a window that faces my front yard. So a lot of times I can just sit here and watch birds in the front yard or squirrels running around. It's very nice lighting too for sewing. Okay, I'm going to finish sewing these pieces together, and then I'll bring you back when I'm ready to the next step. Okay, I got most of my pieces sewed together. This is his head, mostly, except for the back. Just two little ears out there. And I thought I'd bring you back as I show you how I sew my button eyes on. I usually use embroidery floss for sewing the eyes, the felt nose, making the mouth. So the same color for all three of those. I take 2 strands. This is a brown embroidery floss. Separate it. Needle threaded here. At the end. And then I take the button, the eye, and I try to go down almost halfway from where the ear is. From where the ear is to the end of the snout. And right along this seam line is where I usually like to attach my eyes on mine. Whoop, I didn't make the knot big enough for my embroidery floss. Hang on one second. Pulled that thread right through. Okay, let's try this again. Like I said, I hold the ear back where it would normally sit, and almost halfway down the snout. Right about there. Now try to stay in camera view as best as I can here. There, just pull it through again. Okay. And I hand stitch What is with this embroidery thread? There. Surely that's going to stay this time. Apologize for that. Okay. Like I was getting ready to say, I hand stitch all the eyes, nose, and mouth features. I go through tons of black buttons and brown buttons. I actually had to order some off of Amazon. So if any of my viewers have a button collection and you have some, you know, medium size black or brown buttons you'd like to get rid of, you know, I'd gladly take them off your hands. I never thought, you know, I'd have to search through all my button bins and take out all the black and brown buttons just to have enough. I hate to purchase anything. If I can, you know, recycle buttons off of other pieces of clothing and etc., I do that. A lot of my crafts are made with recycled materials. Like I said, if you happen to have some that you don't feel you're going to be using and like to pass along my direction, just let me know. Send me a comment, private message, and I'll send you my address. Like I said, I'd really appreciate it. And these do, like I said, most of the bears I make go to my local hospice. So any donation you make, you know, it's going to a good cause. I just wanted to make that clear that, you know, I will use whatever is sent to me as a donation on my hospice bears. I'll use my personal supply on my personal orders. So if you'd like to donate to help out, I'd really appreciate that. Also, medium weight interfacing. I go through a lot of that on material that's too thin or too stretchy. I have to apply interfacing to the back of the material before I cut out the pattern pieces. Like I said, if there's, you know, anything you'd like to donate to help out the bear making process, I would appreciate. Just let me know through a comment, and I will gladly mention you, or I can keep it private. You know, if you'd like a shout out in one of my videos, I can do that. I have no problem with that. And like I said, it'll be for a good cause, for the hospice bear factory is what my husband likes to call it. He always said, "You're going into the bear factory to go to work." I said, "Yep. Time to make the bears." But I enjoy it, so I really don't consider it work. And I know the family members really love getting them. I've received messages from people that's gotten my bears and how much they appreciate it and how much they love them. So I don't mind spending some time putting them together. Alright, there we go. I got my button eyes sewed on for this one. And then I'll go back and sew some more pieces together. And I'll probably be back with you when it's time to do some stuffing. Okay, I got my bear all sewed together. Ready for stuffing. This is head. It's 2 arms. Midsection. And you pre-stuff the legs before you attach them to the body. So, and then I usually take them, flip them upside down. Here's the opening in the back of the arm where I left. And that's how you fill the arms. I always push it down towards the actual paw first. Fill that part of the arm up. I try to not make my bears like stuffed real hard, I guess. I like them to have a little bit of softness to them. So when the person's hugging them or holding them, you know, they're a little bit softer. I've seen some other bears where they're stuffed so hard that, you know, they're just, to me, it's uncomfortable to hold on to. I think if, you know, there was a time you wanted to hug something, or you wanted to hold this bear in your arms, you would want them a little bit on the softer side. So I try to spread the stuffing out as best I can, not so it's not all balled up together. I take the material, make sure it's folded over a little bit, pin shut, and I'll go flip my bear over. Whoop, got some extra strings attached here. Throw them away. Here's his other arm. I do the same way I did the first one. Put some stuffing in, push it down towards the paw. This is another reason why you want to back stitch when you're doing your seams, because you are putting some pressure on the seam opening when you're stuffing them. And you don't want to rip your seam open any more than what it already is open. Turn it a little sideways. Push the stuffing down in, make sure it's pretty even. Fold the material down so there's no raw edges. Pin. Pin again, and I'll hand stitch these openings closed. And I flip them over again. And then you stuff him from the back, from his back side. Go up into the head. The stuffing, I go through quite a bit of it too. I usually, hospice provides the stuffing for me. I just let them know whenever I'm getting low. And they purchase it and ship it right directly to my house, so I have it to use. Now, I do purchase my own stuffing for my personal orders. I do not use their supplies for orders that aren't hospice bears, because I don't want to take advantage of anybody. You know, they do fundraisers and things, you know, to make the money to be able to provide these bears to the customers or the clients. So, and then I like turn them upside down. So here's his head. Make sure he's got enough stuffing up towards his snout. Make sure his head's nice and soft. Over here towards his ear. The other side towards the ear. Okay, his head feels pretty firm. Now I just basically have to put stuffing in his body. I call this one a him because it is for a gentleman who passed away. So. Make sure you push it down towards his hip area on both sides. After I feel it's about, I don't know, halfway stuffed, I'll flip it over and make sure his belly, you can see he's got a nice little, not a big belly, but it's, you know, filled up nice. Maybe about one more handful here. Make sure it's all down towards the legs. The shoulders are filled in. And the same way with his arms. I just pull the material together, make sure it's the opening, that the material is folded over so there's no raw edges, like I said. Pin. Make sure the seam that I'm going to make is going to be nice and straight. Then I usually start with stitching the arms closed. I like to do them first, and then I'll go to stitching his back area closed. And I try to use quilting thread if possible, stitching these holes shut so they're, you know, a bit more secure. I bring the thread through the bottom of the opening, up the top. Then I make sure the material is folded under, the stuffing is down over. And then I believe they call this a whip stitch. You don't want your stitches to be visible if all possible. Whoop. Then I go along and stitch this closed. A lot of people don't like to hand sew, but I find it relaxing. I don't mind it. I actually do a lot of hand quilting also. Yes, it takes longer than sewing or quilting by machine, or hand sewing than by a sewing machine. But I find it relaxing. It gives you time to think. Lots of times I get more crafting ideas when I'm taking things slow and doing it by hand, which I probably don't need any more crafting ideas, but I do have tons and tons of different kind of crafting supplies. So if I get an idea while I'm working on something, I have a notepad fairly close and a pencil, and I'll just, you know, scribble down the idea. Whether I ever get to it or not is a different story, but I try to, you know, keep track of any thoughts or ideas. If I think of a way maybe to decorate another bear, I'll write that down. Like I said, some bears, the customers, clients, would like them to have clothing. Whether that be like a little vest or a pair of pants on a little male bear, dresses for females. Some of them, I do collars and buttons on, like a shirt, like a button up front of a shirt. So there's, you know, different ways that the people like their bears done. So I try to my best to, when they, you know, fill out the instruction sheet basically that hospice provides to them, they fill that out. If there's any special requests, they make sure it's marked on that sheet, and that sheet gets passed on to me. That quick, I got one armhole sewed shut. Get another piece of thread on my needle here as soon as I get it unknotted. And really, hand stitching doesn't take that long. If, you know, you've done it a lot, it goes fairly quickly. Sometimes the most time it takes is for me to see the eye of the needle to get it threaded. Turn my bear a little bit. Take this pin out so I can see the opening. Stuff the batting down in. And then I'll stitch this side closed. Now I'll bring it back when I've got all of his holes stitched closed and show you how I do the felt nose and his mouth. Okay. Here he is, all stuffed, put together. So now I'm going to work on his facial features. I take a square piece of felt, brown felt, because I gave him brown eyes. Fold it in half. And I just cut almost like you're going to cut a heart shape out. But I don't make the center indentation. I go more straight across the top. And that's what the nose looks like. Throw that little extra piece in my trash. Try my best here. Now I like to center the point here down his center seam. So I just take 2 straight pins. Just straight down through the felt into the bear. And pin them in place. I've already threaded my needle with 2 strands of embroidery floss. I go up underneath, maybe like a 1/4 inch underneath the felt with my floss. But I'll try my best to keep this in frame here. Then go back down where that center seam is, catch the flannel, and come back up through the felt where I started the embroidery floss. Then I believe this is called the blanket stitch. You hold your embroidery floss over the thread, and then it forms this little stitch. And then I just go the whole way around the nose, grab the flannel from underneath. Make sure to hold your embroidery floss over so it makes the outside stitch. And I go the whole way around. And I apologize, it isn't the best angle here for me to see, and also for you to see it. I apologize. But this is just some detail work that I need to be able to see it a little bit better. It won't take me long here to stitch the nose on. And I rotate the bear as I'm working on it. I just find that a lot easier. Okay, now I've already went past this one straight pin, so I go ahead and pull it out. Like I said, I do about 1/4 inch into the felt, and each stitch is approximately a 1/4 inch apart from each other. This brown felt almost looks like leather. It would be nice if I could do leather noses, but leather is really expensive. And I don't want to add any, more expense into the bears, especially for as many as I make. Now, if someone would specially request leather and provide it, that wouldn't be a problem. I would go ahead and sell it, do it with leather. But for these projects, I think the felt just looks just as good. I've seen memory bears where they've actually done the button nose too, along with button eyes. But I just feel making the nose out of felt, that it's shaped more like a nose. Sometimes I'll do a little heart shaped. I've had a lot of people really like them done with a heart shape also, cut out. Especially like if it's a little girl bear, and they're a little on the fancier side. I like to do a heart-shaped nose. And then I just run my embroidery floss up underneath through the batting. Remove my other pin. And there you go. There's his little nose. Now let me re-thread my needle so I can show you how I do the mouth. And I believe I will put a little collar on this bear. I saved the collar from the flannel shirt. So with a little bit of adjusting, I can make the collar fit the bear. And that just gives them a little extra. Okay, I've tied a little knot at the end of my embroidery floss. I go up underneath the felt on the nose, down to that corner where the seams line up again. Bring my thread out through the felt, pull my knot down through. Like I said, I apologize for the angle, but I have to make it where I can see too as I'm stitching. I just go straight down in the same area 3 times, so it makes the line show up better. That's the 3rd one. Then I go under all the flannel to where that stitch end, that big long stitch. Bring my needle out. And then I go to one side, kind of on a slight angle to make a smile. I'll do this stitch twice. Flip them over. Go to the other side on a slight angle. Do that side twice. Even out my stitches. Okay, I'll do this one more time on that side. So that's 3 times on that side. And flip them again. 3 times to that side. And then whatever floss I have left on my needle, which isn't usually very much, I just take and go push it as far through, like to the back of the head, if I can. Pull it through. And then that gets buried inside the bear. There you go. There's facial feature. And let me see if I'll kind of give you an idea here. This is the collar. It was originally from the shirt. I saved it with the button still attached. So I button it shut. Oh, that's a tight one. Okay. Then hold it to the center of his neck. Pull it around to the back. Turn him over here a second. Okay. I have this excess of a collar left. So I try to put a pin here on that side. Pin on this side. Pull it up over his head. And then I'll cut out this center section and sew it together. So these pieces together, and that makes the collar smaller. So I'll show you. Cut there. Cut there. And then I just throw this little excess piece away. Take my pin out. Take the pin out of this side. Fold good sides together. I'll just throw a pin through both of them real quick. Over to my sewing machine. Hang on 1 second, I'll be right back with you. It won't take long at all to stitch this closed. I stitch this open and closed 2 rows, so it's more secure. Clip my thread. Okay, brought it back over. Now, turn my collar this way. And then I just fold the collar down again. Yes, I do have a seam here in the back, but I've never really had anybody complain that, you know, there's a seam there. I could actually flip it this way. Hang on. Here we go. There we go. That turned the right way now. Took me a second. Okay. Put the collar down over his head. Okay, now his button is on the inside of the collar, but I will find, actually I think I'll use this piece of gray from an extra piece, and I'm going to give him a bow tie. So I take this cording, run it under his folded collar, all the way around, all the way around. Okay, now I got this gray cording. And basically we'll tie that in a little bow. Trim the edges. Oh. Move the camera up here and I'll hold him. There we go. He's got his little collar, little tie. And there he is. And that's another hospice bear done and ready to be delivered. Alright, I appreciate you guys watching. If you like these kind of crafting videos, please like and subscribe. And me and Mr. Bear say thank you. Bye-bye.